Welcome to High Strangeness, where we ask questions and explore all that is strange and unexpected in our reality.
Welcome to High Strangeness. I'm Tony, and this is the place where we talk about all things strange and unexpected in our reality. Today is another one of our random strangeness episodes, and I have today with me my co-host and regular voice on the show, Anthony. How's it going, Anthony? How are
Hey.
things going these days?
Doing good. Always good.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
So this is airing in January, February, but not too long ago, we had a big election here in the United States. And I was kind of interested in the way people approached it, but I do feel like people had decided pretty early on. I really thought I'd see a little more craziness around it, but I think people started to settle in a few weeks out. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think it depends on what you were watching because everyone
True.
had their own opinion, right? And we live in a time where we have our own little echo chambers. So for me, everything I was watching made sense. I was like, this makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
But then I'd get little glimpses of, maybe another program or another news outlet or things that didn't see the same way I did. And I was like, oh man, I don't know how it's going to be. So
Yeah.
I was hopeful I was optimistic about my point of view, but then I would hear how optimistic the other side was. And I was like, I don't know what to expect here.
Yeah. Well, one thing for sure, I do see the value of podcasting all over the place because the narrative is people are able to get a little more directness with the society and what's going on in different viewpoints. So whether you're right or whether you're left, there are podcasts and shows out there that will give you that. And I see a lot of straightforward information out there that lets people choose for themselves too. And I think that's a great set of options for people because I think media has done itself a disservice uh, in a lot of ways recent years. So
Yeah, I agree.
hope that changes in future years. So yeah.
Well, we don't want it to change because then there's just more for us.
Well, that's true. Well, this mode of communication, I think, is here to stay. So it's good stuff. I'm having fun anyway, even though we're not talking about those heavy, weighty issues. We're having fun and sharing stuff with people.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's interesting. I've been thinking about recent things that have happened, and one of the strangest things that's happened locally here, not too far from where I live recently, is a house literally blew up. Um, it we still don't know exactly everything and the cause. They do think it's a gas leak. So I feel bad and worry about the people in that neighborhood because does that mean that's a problem for other people too? But I've never seen a house literally blow up off its foundation. I mean, there was very little left. And
Someone was inside, by the way, too.
yeah, that's right. Somebody was a young person.
A 15-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Sad.
Terrible. I'm not saying this is the reason why, but I remember when I was younger, um, I've seen people do some crazy things. Once again, I'm not saying that's the case with this house that blew up, but I'm aware of years ago somebody messing with fireworks and they got in their house. I don't know if they tried to shoot it from their house or whatever, and their house burned down. And so people do interesting stuff, crazy things, and you never know what you're going to see. Sometimes they're strange and unexpected. Sometimes people just do weird things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Scary though. I get worried about that kind of stuff.
Well, when you hear that, it's like you don't even think about it. There's so many scary things that could happen. That's something like that. Like you're just sitting there and there's just an explosion, right? You're gone. You had no idea. Right. There's things like I don't know, driving down the street and something falls off a sign or whatever, and you're on the freeway and it comes through the front windshield. I mean, there's just like so many random things that can happen, and you don't think about it. And when you hear about it, you're like, that's scary. That's a new fear that's unlocked,
Yeah.
Um, and yeah. So I mean that house explosion was something for me. Like I don't think about it. And then when I had heard about it, I was like, all of a sudden I was like the next day I was like, do I smell gas? I mean, like how I was playing tricks on me. I come down, I check my furnace and so like that. I'm like, I don't smell anything. Like
Yeah.
you start getting a little paranoid and a little worried, but there's a millions of things that could probably do that. That that we don't expect.
Yeah. And I think that's the craziest thing about just life in general. There's stupid things we do, and then there's strange and crazy things that happen without us doing anything, really.
Mm.
Or we don't expect things to happen. We've done plenty of stories on this podcast about unfortunate events that have happened to people when they really thought nothing weird was going to happen. I think often when I was a teenager, I had a friend who used to do weird things. And one time he took an aerosol can and he was just messing with people and lighting it and, having like a flamethrower coming out of it. And so he thought it was funny. We were all walking home from the mall and he thought he was going to be funny and burn somebody's mailbox. And I remember him opening up the mailbox and it's just your typical mailbox. It sits on a wooden stand and he goes up and he lights it and shoots it in the mailbox. And it was funny, but it could have been very bad. All I saw, it reminded me of a cartoon. The fire goes in and then shoots out over his head. And he turns around and looks at all of us, and all the hair in his face, his eyebrows, eyelashes, everything is gone.
Jeez.
Everything is gone. And so we were shocked, right? He's lucky he didn't burn his eyeballs, or something like
Mm.
that. But these are the things that happen, um, that people do sometimes. And I do remember he went home and I think his parents asked him what happened and he just made up this crazy story about, you know, something else.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? Do you think people in general own up to stupid things that they do, or do they try to hide that? What's your experience with people?
I think most people try to come up with excuses, do something
Yeah.
wrong. They don't want to take responsibility for it. Um, can be for little things or big things, right? I think people, when it's big things, they do themselves a disservice because they're just hurting themselves. But when it's little things, it's funny, because they don't want to. It's
Yeah.
like my daughter the other day, my 3-year-old little girl was in bed. I had done the whole bed routine, go to bed. And she um, got up, said she had to use the bathroom. I said, okay. So she uses the bathroom. I go sit down on the couch, and she's in there for a little while. And it occurs to me that she's not in bed. So I go in there, and there's soap all over the floor. It's foam soap, so there's soap everywhere. There's a towel that's soaked in water. There's things all over the floor. And I say, whoa, what the heck is this? What did you do? And she goes, I didn't do that. I was like, "What do you mean you didn't do that?" She goes, "Yeah, I didn't do it, I promise." And I had no intention. Obviously, she's 3, so I wasn't going to discipline her for that. I was just like, "Oh, that's it. I'm upset now." And I started walking towards her a little faster as if she was gonna be in trouble. And she just was like, "I promise. I promise I didn't do it." And I was like, "You liar. Yes, you did. Like, you're
That's
the only
funny.
one awake." Anyway, so it could be little things or big things, but I think people don't like to feel stupid. So
Yeah.
and that's anger is a secondary emotion that typically occurs. And that could be something that creates anger is like when someone feels stupid, they get angry. And in an
Yeah.
order, so it's almost like your body's trying, it's like a survival mechanism. Your body's trying to, it doesn't want to get angry, but it doesn't want to keep that either. So it's trying to divert it, right?
Yeah.
Put it on this thing so I don't have to get angry, but I don't look stupid either.
Yeah. So true. Well, it's funny because as we're talking about these things, my mind is just going all over the place with things I remember from the past. I love that story about your daughter, but you know, this is interesting. I'm thinking of this kind of randomly, but years ago, when I came out here and I was in college, I worked in this drugstore. I had a few part time jobs, and there was this young lady, really cute young lady, who started to do weird things. Like she would shake, and her arm would go like this, and then she'd start cursing at people.
Mhm.
And I didn't know at the time what this was, and I kind of like looked at her and smiled, and I was like waiting for like the joke or something. And I had another friend that worked there too, and we didn't know what was going on, and we found out later that she actually had Tourette's syndrome.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know if many people know what that is. I did not know what that was at the time, and it was interesting to see it and then to understand it. And then I noticed it more here and there. I mean, it's not something a lot of people have, but it is interesting that there's plenty of that out there. Um, so this leads me to my next question, kind of a random way of getting here. But have you ever seen anything, just behavior or otherwise, that you just wondered, did I even see that? Or was that weird? Because that's how I felt when I first saw what she did. Have you ever had anything like that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a similar experience with someone that had Tourette's as well, that it was so unexpected that it was hard not to laugh, to be honest with you, because
Yeah.
it was like, and I wasn't laughing at them, but it was just something so funny, and I had no idea what caused that. And to you, same thing that you just said is like, I thought they were just being funny. Like it was something so out of the blue. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's hilarious. you know, and then come to find out that it's like a condition, and I'm like, oh, I feel bad for laughing, but at the same time, you know,
Yeah.
it was so surprising that it was hard not to hold back a smile.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, what would you do if you saw this? We're going to watch a short clip now.
Riot! Riot or I'll break it off! Ah, no! Come on! Stop it!
So that was an interesting video from Liar Liar with one of my favorite actors, Jim Carrey. Do you
Yeah, I
remember
love
that
that
on the
scene.
movie?
I love
Yeah,
that
that's
scene.
awesome.
This is when, for those who can't see, Jim Carrey's fighting his hand about the color of the pen.
Yes. It's great. I love it. And, as we would see in this film, basically that hand goes after him. He cannot say the color red, only blue or whatever. Or he can't lie. That's really the issue. But it's funny because his hand has a mind of its own and it does its own thing and he can't control it. And it's a hilarious scene in the movie. Those of you who haven't seen it, you should. It's pretty funny. But, as silly as this is, this actually leads us to our first topic today, which is a condition you may or may not have heard of called alien hand syndrome. So, before this episode, have you ever heard of alien hand syndrome? I hadn't.
Never heard of it. Apparently seen it in this movie, but never actually heard of it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we see this hand. I mean, he's fighting that hand away. And it's hilarious. He writes on his own face and that sort of thing. So, what is this condition? Alien hand syndrome is a rare motor disorder characterized by involuntary yet purposeful activity in one hand. So, an example would be simply like a person with this condition starts buttoning up their shirt, and then their other hand comes along and starts unbuttoning the shirt. So, it's almost like the hand does it without his permission.
It's pretty funny, to be honest with you. It's hard not to laugh at this one because I looked this up and there was a video of a guy getting up and he was like making his bed and his
Yeah.
hand would just mess it up and he'd like go like this and then he would try to remake it and mess it up again, or he'd reach for some pills and open it, and as he was like getting ready to pour out the pills, the hand would smack the bottle out of his hand and pills would go
Yeah.
everywhere.
Right.
It was, you know,
Funny.
I have a lot of
Funny, but
friends in
real.
high school that would have, if they'd known about this disease, that would have been a good excuse for a few scenarios.
Right.
Just kidding. Um,
It's
anyway,
true.
yeah, this is a weird one.
Yeah. So people, don't let your teenage child watch this or learn about this condition. They may use it.
Like, honey, I told you it's not me. It's the alien hand syndrome.
Right. Well, here's the thing, too. This is usually the hand or one of the hands, but there has been a couple of stories or situations out there where it's happened with one leg. That's called the alien leg phenomena. But that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to focus on the alien hand syndrome. Um, Here's the interesting thing. There have been some cases of this where the hand is actually aggressive. Okay. Reports of people with this condition where the hand spontaneously starts hitting and slapping themselves.
Here's the funny part about this.
I'm not going to lie. I want to see that.
Yeah, so I had an old boss that I used to work for, and he had a son that he was special needs,
Yeah.
and the son he had Down syndrome, and I mean, just anyone with Down syndrome, just happy go
Yeah.
lucky, like always great people. But his son, at one point, they were in the car, and his son got in a physical altercation with his hand, and the hand was like slapping him around. The hand reached up through the handrail or the hand thing on the car and like I don't know, grabbed his shirt or his tie or
Mm.
something and was pulling it through, like choking him. And the son was, yelling like, hand, you're hurting me. And my old boss said he was just trying his darn hardest not to crash the car because it was the most hilarious thing he's ever seen. And his comment to me was like, that's how much of an imagination his son has and all this stuff. And it was great. It was a great conversation. And it was
Yeah.
at no way denigrating his son. It was just talking about that imagination and um, just how fun his son was essentially. But
Yeah.
after hearing that and then and I've heard that years ago and then seeing this, I'm like, what if he had this?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I didn't think this was a real thing, but you know, you never know. Maybe he was, it was just his imagination, he was just fighting his hand, or maybe it was an alien hand.
Right. Well, and that's why we talk about some of these, right? Because what if you're making fun of somebody or you think, come on now, knock it off, and it's real? We've talked about different accents on this show. We've talked about people who just basically, s- you know, uh, between stutter and do different things that nobody would expect them to be doing, all kinds of things. So, yeah, this is just another one of those unexpected things that may actually be a condition, and you never know. So, there's been some cases where the hand gets out of control and it actually has tried to choke people, choke themselves. I don't
Crazy.
think I've read anything where it chokes somebody next to them. It's always the same person themselves. In fact, in 1998, there was a paper published in the Journal of Neurology and Neurosurgery and Psychiatry where an 81-year-old woman reported that she totally feared her left hand after it repeatedly hit her and attempted to strangle her. Real story, real case.
That's
Yeah.
what do you do? What do you do about that situation?
I don't know. Let's talk about that real quick. But before we talk about how people handle that, there have been some cases where brain scans have noticed lesions found in portions of the brain that they think can actually lead to some of this. Now, lesions can naturally occur after things like strokes and different type of neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer's, things like that, and even brain tumors. But you know, some people have seizures and stuff like that, and there's a treatment that they've used to try to deal with that, and it's where they take your brain has two halves, and there's a I'm trying to think how I want to call this, but it's called the corpus callosum. It's this fiber that connects the two brains, the two halves.
Mm.
And there is a surgery in the past where they've actually cut that to help minimize epilepsy and that sort of thing. But it does cause the brain to figure out new ways to communicate from one side to the next. For most of you out there, probably know this, that your right side of your brain actually controls most of your left side of your body and vice versa. So there's like some crossover there with the way your brain works. And so when you cut the corpus callosum, it just forces the brain to try to recreate new pathways and to do different things. And so they think that this also is one of the things that can cause this rogue limb scenario where people kind of have this hand or whatever that's got its own mind in a way.
Interesting.
Yeah. So no approved medications for this. There is behavioral interventions that people can do and exercises so that they can gain control or keep that one limb busy. Nothing's 100% effective, but there are stuff out there done to help with that. Interesting, huh? Alien hand syndrome.
Never heard of it. Pretty crazy.
Yeah. Okay. You ready for our next topic? We
Yes.
are going to dive into strange creatures. This next one is a cryptid. Well, actually, I'll let everybody read that real quick before we move on. Syndrome first reported around 1908. And the interesting thing is its frequency is increased from the 1940s.
So when neurosurgery for epilepsy began to take off, so could it be a result
corpus
of that surgery?
callosum?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that the main
exactly.
cause?
Yeah. I haven't heard anything definitive. I tried to look a little bit into it, nothing for sure, but definitely some things there to, parallel that a little bit. Maybe it's the surgeries
Interesting.
increasing that. Yeah. Okay. Now, cryptid. Right here we have a sign Bray Road. And so what does Wisconsin have? Most people know them for the Cheeseheads and the Green Bay Packers. But there's also the Beast of Bray Road. Now, the Beast of Bray Road is a name given to a wolf-like creature that has been reported to and witnessed near Elkhorn or Walworth County, Wisconsin. The creature has become part of the Wisconsin folklore and has been the subject of multiple books, documentaries, and even a 2005 horror film.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what I saw when I looked it up. Was I didn't know there was a movie about it.
Yeah.
This picture is funny.
Yeah.
It's like a wolf walking up a hill with like skeleton arms.
All right. So let's see what we see here. There has been alleged sightings in 1936, in the 1980s. Several alleged witnesses reported the beast had made contact with their vehicles, leaving long scratch marks on their doors and trunks of the vehicle. So this is interesting because it's leaving marks. If that's, now I don't know how that gets reported, who's actually taking pictures of it. Is it just a claim or is it really something left over that people could see pictures of? Go ahead.
No. Oh, I say it just reminds me of the New Jersey Devil.
Yeah.
That same kind of is interesting to see this. This one looks more terrifying than the New Jersey Devil. The New Jersey Devil stories I think are more terrifying. But then you see the picture and you're like, that's the best you guys could like come up with. And this one looks more terrifying, but I haven't heard a lot of stories about it yet. So maybe that's what you're
Yeah.
about to dive into. But
I'll give
like
you one
even
here.
okay,
Yeah, this is one witness stated that she hit something when she was driving and it was running across Bray Road. Um, she actually pulled over and exited the vehicle to determine what she had hit. And she noticed at a distance this large wolf like creature with red eyes got up and started chasing her, running to her car. So, of course, she jumps in the car, shuts the door, and tries to start the vehicle. But apparently, this thing is bumping up against the vehicle and leaving scratch marks on her rear passenger doors. I don't know. Yeah. There's been some daylight hour sightings um, where people have seen a large wolf like creature running on all fours through cornfields, and they attribute it to this beast as well. And animal mutilations. There's been some reports around Bray Road of animal remains, including deer and livestock, partially eaten with specific organs removed from the animal carcass.
well,
Interesting.
that sounds like aliens
Yeah.
if it's specific organs.
And the last sightings were February 2018 and July 2020. So it's pretty recent, actually,
Yeah,
that people have claimed to have seen this. It's, the Jersey Devil, it's been forever, and some of these other animals, but this one a little bit more recent.
interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a scarier picture.
That's a cooler looking picture. If you Google it too, there's a lot of good looking pictures.
Yeah.
But then I haven't watched that movie from 2005, but when I looked it up, there's some goofy pictures. So I don't know
Yeah.
what the quality is of the film or not. So
Well, yeah, I haven't seen it either. So maybe if somebody's seen it, drop us a comment and let us know what you thought about it. Okay. This is not the Bray Wolf. Okay.
can't do that.
This is a officer here, sort of at the airport. Um, there have always been strange things found in luggages at airports and things. Um, what do you think is the strangest thing someone has found at the airport in someone's luggage? Any thoughts?
Um, I bet someone's found some limbs, like a human limb.
Maybe.
Um, you know, obviously drugs, guns,
Yeah.
inappropriate material. But yeah, outside of that, I don't know. But I imagine there's some wild stories.
Yeah. And I didn't do a deep dive to find out all the kinds of different things. I'd be curious to see what they're categorized as. But the one we're going to talk about today is in the Boston Logan International Airport. And this little guy, uh, what was his name? Buddy. Buddy. Buddy the dog sniffed this out. And he sniffed a bag and could pick up that there was something in there. And so when the person who owned the bag was asked about this, they basically were trying to say it was just you know meat or something like that was in the bag. But really, what they found was mummified monkey heads.
Whoa,
Mummified monkey heads, and this is a picture of them right here. Why would you have monkey heads in your bag?
that's some juju stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, let's see. This person was coming back from a trip from Congo. Now, just side information for people, raw or minimally processed meat from certain wild animals, otherwise known as bushmeat, is not allowed to enter the United States, largely because it's a health concern. Bushmeat can carry germs that can cause illness, including Ebola virus. So we don't want that stuff coming in. and that's probably why they're checking. But it is an interesting tidbit. And this in Boston was one of the strangest things they found in luggage. Want to hear a couple more? Let's mention a couple more. Washington, D.C., 2022. Airport confiscated a bag that had charred bats in there. Charred bats. And in 2019, O'Hare International Airport intercepted 32 pounds of rat meat. So, I don't know. Weirdest thing I ever had in a bag was somebody found I had a small knife in my bag and I didn't realize it. That was a shear. And, but never animals, heads or anything like that. But apparently some people are out there bringing weird things. What do you think? So,
Well, in other countries, I mean, that bushmeat's pretty common. Like when I lived in
yeah,
Ghana, they would sell, I mean, just like it looked like roadkill. It's just like flattened, dehydrated, animals. You didn't even know what kind of animals they were.
wow.
That was what they called bushmeat. So they'd be like,
Really, they didn't identify what it was. They just said bushmeat.
yep,
Wow.
yep, yeah. I mean, maybe if you ask some of them, they may have known, but I never found out what it was. I never bought it. I'm sure I ate it because we'd eat at people's houses that would make stews and stuff, and
Mm,
there's some interesting meats in there. Um, but yeah, they just look like they look like this. They look like mummified, or the ones I saw were like roadkill, and I was like, what the heck? But it's
yeah.
huge there. That's I mean, and there and being in other countries, like it's just, and we have so many people. One of the great things about the U.S. is the mosh posh of just like all the different cultures and everyone that can meet here. We won't get into the conversation about legal or illegal stuff,
Right.
but for the most part, like even whether you're supposed to be here or not or whatever, even it's like they bring that culture, and some people just bring that with them. They don't know.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? That's how they've grown up. They don't know. That's so to us it's weird,
Yeah.
uncivilized, but to them it's just their family's favorite meal.
That's
you
meat.
know,
Yeah.
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 So that's so yeah, bats, interesting.
Yeah.
What?
2019, 32 pounds of rat meat also.
Yeah,
So, yeah, maybe people are like, "Hey, I'm not gonna let this go to waste. We can make some stew here."
yeah. I saw when we were talking a minute ago and brought up what some of the strangest things found at an airport. I just quickly went to uh, my favorite AI program called Grok, which is
Hmm.
through X. I just asked it. I said, "What's the 10 strangest things found in passengers' luggage by the TSA?" Most of it weaponry, that you would
Right.
find, but some funny ones here. I'll just list since we're on this topic.
Yeah.
A meth stuffed burrito. Someone brought a burrito that was stuffed with methamphetamine. Chainsaw, handgun, a whole chicken, a ball python in a nylon stocking. Traveler
Whoa.
tried to smuggle a snake hidden inside an external hard drive. The one of the crazy ones, human skull fragments.
Whoa.
So fragments of a human skull were discovered inside clay pots at Fort Lauderdale Airport. Doesn't tell me
Wow.
the year; just gave me. I'm sure I could ask it, but this one's funny. A live turtle in pants. A traveler attempted to bring a live turtle concealed in their pants at the Spokane International Airport. So, there's a
Right
few of
on.
some of the weirdest ones.
Yeah. There
I
you go.
think monkey heads probably should be on this list. So I don't know why I didn't include that because that one's pretty
Yeah.
strange. But
Yeah.
a turtle in pants is pretty cool too.
That's interesting. Crazy. Well, so you never know what you're going to find at the airport. TSI or TSA employees must be interesting over there
That's why they
for
get paid the
sure.
big bucks.
Right. Okay. Enough about airports and weird stuff. You ready for our last topic?
Let's do it.
Okay. Today's last topic comes from the building and structural fail area. We cover that sometimes on these random strangeness where we look at different things that failed or became a problem after they were built. And today's example is something called the Galloping Gertie. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a bridge from 1940 going across the Tacoma Narrows area. It was a suspension bridge there in Tacoma, Washington, and it was a new bridge in 1940. And the crazy thing about this bridge, I should put it on the screen, is a lot of people were pretty excited to have it in place, and it opened and became functional in July 1st, 1940, but it collapsed in July 7th of the same year. So they got 4 months out of that bridge.
Dang.
Yeah. So why would that be? Now, with that name Galloping Gertie, what would you think? There's a picture of that bridge going across there. It's a long bridge.
It looks just like the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
Like same kind of style drawbridge.
Yeah.
Well, the pictures I've seen is like old black and white video or images, and I don't know if it was in the wind or what, but the thing just swayed like crazy. And to me, I don't know if that's why, but I think that's where maybe that name came from.
That's exactly right. In fact, why don't we take a minute and watch just a minute of this video of that bridge doing that. Okay. So there you go. That's some interesting and crazy footage. Bridge construction began in 1938, September. And from that time, when the deck was built, it started to move vertically when the wind conditions were, not really high. There wasn't like super windy conditions, but just, a little above what would be average wind. And so the construction workers started naming this thing Galloping Gertie because they could see it moving. Now, after the bridge opened, there were some measures to try to keep it from moving so much, but it just took 40-mile-an-hour winds to get that thing moving and dancing like that. So, some crazy footage.
Yeah, it's just to me, it's sometimes when we're going through processes today, there's lots of rules or regulations, things like that we have to go through. Paperwork. If you're taking out a loan, there's paperwork. If you're building something, there's all these regulations or permitting and all this stuff. And a lot of that's pain in the butt, and I'm sure some of it's unnecessarily. But I think, though, like majority of it, or a large portion of it, is based on something that went wrong in the past. Right? So like when you're building, it's probably a pain in the butt to get permitting and inspections and all stuff. This is why. This is why one area, because I don't know. Did anyone die when that collapsed?
No, I think a dog did. That was it. But there is you can, in one video, I don't know if it's the one we used here, you could see a man walking from their car that they left on the bridge. But apparently one dog was still on the bridge when it collapsed. Fortunately, nobody,
Yeah, fortunately in that instance, no one did. But, there's probably thousands of other instances where someone did get hurt in construction or whatever, where now there's a rule against it. right? Or they're
Yeah.
not against it, but there's a rule protecting it or a regulation that's trying to make sure that thing doesn't happen again. So that's what I think of when I see videos like this. Is like, I'm glad they figured out all this stuff before I was born, because now we don't have to worry about that. There's other things we got to worry about, but that, some of those things,
Yeah.
those people took the bullet for, and they figured that stuff out.
Yes. So parts of that bridge are still in the water there underneath, and it's used as an artificial reef.
Hmm.
So it wasn't completely removed everything, but yeah. So new bridge there now. But it's interesting. We talk about this, and I wonder, when people hear this, see this video, do they think, hmm, do I trust everything that's older around me? There's been a lot of infrastructure talk in recent years, where they show with stories here and there where you can go underneath bridges and see things rusting and
Hmm.
kind of failing. And that's really happening everywhere. I mean, there's stuff like that going on everywhere. So, yeah, how much should we trust everything that we use go on? I don't know. It's a little
Yeah,
scary.
it is scary. And a different way to look at it is cool, in my opinion, how like nature reclaims things. I do think that's cool. I mean, like
Yeah.
everything we have was here years ago and will be here for years to come or whatever. And I don't know enough about recycling and landfills and all that stuff to know exactly how um, some of that stuff breaks down. But for me, it's like, to see a building that hasn't been touched in many years and see how it's kind of like almost the landscape is now overtaking it. In some instances, it's sad. In some instances, it's scary, like for infrastructure and stuff like that. But then on some instances, it's kind of like cool. It's kind of like, this, if we were to just disappear from a city or whatever, that the city would slowly become you know consumed back
Yes.
into nature and so that. So I don't know, sometimes I think about that, and I think it's mother nature's pretty fascinating when you think about it that way.
I agree. Reminds me a little bit of some of the movies, the Planet of the Apes,
Hmm.
where you see evidence that some civilization, meaning us, existed prior to the ape population. And it does make you wonder, like, how long would it really take? Like, how completely would evidence of our technology and society disappear? And I actually think there was a show on the Discovery Channel that I watched a few episodes where they talked about after the humans left, what would things look like, and it was right along this premise. So it was
Well, there's that movie
pretty cool.
Time Machine too. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
That one
yeah.
was pretty cool. I mean, again, it's a movie, so it's not accurate. Some would argue maybe it is. There's someone I know that might. Just kidding. But they go super far into the future, and it's interesting to see how they portray like technology having become part of the land again, and like little remnants of it and stuff like that. So anyway, I think there's some truth to that.
Yeah, and there are in other episodes we'll probably get into some of this, but there are theories out there that some of UAP and or UFO, whatever you want to call them, that we see today are maybe just time travelers. That's a whole nother topic and episode.
Hmm.
But there is some thought about that and some serious debate and theories around that.
Hmm.
And if that wasn't enough, some people wonder, and I think Ancient Aliens and that sort of stuff spends time on some of these theories, believing that we are just one in another cycle of civilizations that have existed here. So, you know, in the age of this planet, maybe there was another full civilization that had all the capabilities we had, or maybe different, but as advanced as we do. And things happen to, you know, eliminate them or make them leave, or who knows. So,
Well, that's a conversation that people have about Egyptians, right? Ancient
yeah,
Egyptians.
yeah,
Like, there's a lot of proof that early Egyptians had tremendous amount of technology that maybe we didn't know of, and then there came a point where it was like even some of Egypt that we see today that we would associate with Egypt is after what that early period of time where people
Right.
think that was the more advanced time, right? Because isn't the Sphinx is like way older than most I don't know, you might know this, like it's one
Yeah.
of the oldest things in Egypt, right? That's like way older, and they're trying to figure out like maybe around that time or even pre the pyramids, where there's just like this whole
Well,
civilization that was super advanced.
yes, I mean, this is true. That particular the Sphinx itself shows evidence of being built on top of another structure. In fact, if you go down deep enough, there's water damage at the base of that thing,
Hmm.
which suggests, you know, a different environment that we in our written history do not show any evidence for.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
Crazy.
there's definitely stuff like that going on. Good for other episodes when we talk about some of these things, but definitely people should keep their minds open. We know only what we see, and so much else may exist out there. So, I was about to wrap us up with my normal saying, but before we do that, what were your favorite things that we covered in this episode?
I like alien hand syndrome. I wish I would have known about that. Like I said,
Yeah.
what's the best way to say this? And I don't mean to make light of what might be a serious condition for people, but at the same time, had a younger group of my friends and I known about that, we would have used that as an excuse to justify things to, our prom date.
Right. We'll leave it at that, right?
Yeah. No, we'll leave it there. We'll
Absolutely.
leave it there. We'll leave it there.
Yeah, those medical issues are always one of my favorite things as well. But I really love the Galloping Gertie story as well.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching that in a class in college early on, and just didn't even think it was a real video,
Mm-hmm.
but to find out it was. So, do we always get it right with our structures? Not always, and it's interesting to see that. So, okay, well, Anthony, this has been fun, and I hope people have enjoyed the few things here that we talked about that maybe they didn't know about. So, as we wrap up today, I want to just remind everybody that there's a lot of strange and unexpected in our reality. So remember to keep your eyes, ears, and minds open. And until next time, stay safe.
Thank you for listening to High Strangeness. This was a glance at some of the strange that exists in our reality.